Next question. Hula _ how many Alexa Grassos are needed to beat one DDP?
How many Alexa Grasses? All of them.
As many as there is.
Like, how many can you make?
Like 400.
Then we just pile up on you and bite you.
I'll be like,
It's Horse Beef. What is going on, everybody? And I want to talk about Dricus du Plessis versus Khamzat Chimaev. One of my most anticipated fights. Dude, like when I think about it, maybe of all time. Maybe of all time. Because this is a true title fight here with a real scary contender. As much as I like to goof on Khamzat Chimaev every now and then, by every now and then, I mean every time I speak about him, I like to goof on him. I'm not really a big fan of the guy. As a person, but as a fighter, no one can deny that he's absolutely terrifying, right? But I honestly think there's way too much being made of him at this current moment as far as how easily he'll run through DDP. People predicting that he'll get it done in the same way against DDP as he's got it done against everybody else. And I'm surprised he's a minus 200 favorite, 2-1 favorite for a fighter who has presumably one path to victory, right? And of course he could go out there and knock out DDP. I would say Khamzat Chimaev has some pretty underrated hands. He does. His jab is pretty good. He has a pretty good too. But everyone knows what he's going to go out there and try and do, right? I know Khabib in that interview said maybe he should go out there and try boxing with DDP. In my opinion, horrible idea because Dricus du Plessis, especially again in the Sean Strickland rematch, right? He showed to be a very technical striker. I know everyone still likes to slag him off and say he's goofy, this and that. But he put some of that goofiness to rest a little bit with that performance over Sean because he looked great on the feet, was digging to the body, extremely dynamic kicking game as well. The question mark kicks to the head from either stance with the lead leg, the back leg. It didn't matter, man. He was showing a very, very dynamic striking game against one of the most defensively responsible and toughest nuts to crack in the 185-pound division. You can say what you want about Sean Strickland, right? But who's actually beaten him in the last few years? Especially playing Sean's game with him. He played Sean's game the way that Israel tried to do with Sean and got dog-walked. Dricus du Plessis went out there and pieced up Sean Strickland for the entirety of that fight, broke his nose, and left no question as to who the rightful 185 champion is. And people really like to point to fights that took place 2 years ago, like the Derek Brunson fight, saying, oh, he was taken down by Derek Brunson. He looked so bad in that one, right? So why shouldn't Khamzat be able to take him down in the exact same way? I don't know, man. Maybe 2 years of fighting at the top level and being quite active in the process, right? Maybe that will lead to some kind of considerable improvement. Also, this is 185. Khamzat Chimaev is a former 170-pounder, way too big for that weight class. Obviously, he was always going to move up to 185, and he's a big motherfucker. But this is a different weight class, and of course, he did that to Robert Whittaker, which was very impressive. It was. But what happened with that finish? Did he actually sub Robert Whittaker because he got the choke in, or did he sub Robert Whittaker because Robert Whittaker had some kind of a facial injury? And Khamzat Chimaev's squeeze happened to trigger that facial injury. Like, honestly, I understand how impressive it was for him to do that to Robert Whittaker in the first round, but he didn't actually sub Robert Whittaker with a choke. He crushed his fucking teeth inwards. He had the same position, the same exact squeeze on Kamaru Usman, wasn't able to finish him, right? So I put that down to, of course, a very dominant first-round performance against Rob, but also very fortunate to have exploited that injury, knowingly or otherwise. Of course, it's for Khamzat to go out there and do what he did. And like, I'm also not saying that he wouldn't have got Robert in the first round anyway, right? He could have continued fighting for that choke and eventually sunk it in. And I have no doubt that he could have done that to Rob. I have no doubt whatsoever. But facts are facts, right? It wasn't a choke. He crushed his teeth inwards. I believe it was a mandible injury. And of course, his nerdy fans will say shit like, oh man, Khamzat's so strong. He doesn't even have to have the choke in. He'll just crush your face with his squeeze, man. He's so strong. Oh, Khamzat, man. But Khamzat's also one of the greatest grapplers I think we've ever seen. He might be the most dominant grappler of all time. I would say you put him in there with anyone in a grappling contest, put him up against Khabib, whoever, right? In and around his size, up to 205, I would say. Khamzat probably gets it better than, man. He's that good on the mat. He's that good. And the fact that everyone knows exactly what he's going to do, they prepare for it probably all camp, yet he still does it, is extremely impressive. But at the same time, he's perceived to have one singular path to victory. So the fact that people are that confident that he will employ that exact same game plan with absolute success once again against Dricus du Plessis of all people, to me, is just crazy. It's just crazy, man. He has one path to victory and he has one round to do so. Yet he's a 2-1 favorite. I think that's crazy. But of course, Dricus is always going to be counted out. Like just think about his entire UFC career thus far, right? He knocked out Marcus Perez. He looked sloppy in the process. Oh, surely Trevin Giles knocks him out. Looks shot sloppy in the process. Looks like he gets rocked against the fence, springboards off the fence and knocks out Trevin Giles. Wild shit. Brad Tavares, right, in the first round, looking pretty dicey for him. He's getting caught. Goes on to steamroll Brad Tavares for the rest of that fight, right? Darren Till getting pieced up in that second round. In the first round, he's beating the hell out of Darren Till, but while it was on the feet, man, Darren Till was piecing up Dricus. But Darren Till is a very seasoned striker in his own right. He's quite underrated. Even to this day, you look at the work he's doing in influencer fucking boxing, he's still clearly a very good striker and way above most of those guys' skill levels, right? If not all of them, I would say all of them. But he was put in compromising positions, even on the ground, right? He was underneath Darren Till at one point, getting ground and pounded. So surely against Derek Brunson, right, the wrestler, he'll be put in even worse positions and beaten, right? For sure. But then he goes against Derek Brunson, weathers the storm, and then ends up pretty much finishing him. I know it was stopped in the corner, but no, he had Derek Brunson out of there at the end of that round. He TKO'd him very cleanly. But he looked sloppy in the process, right? So how the fuck could you possibly pick him against Robert Whittaker of all people, right? One of the greatest 185ers of all time. This is 2 years ago, Robert, right? You may say he's washed now after losing that RDR, which I disagree with, but you couldn't say he was washed back then, right? He definitely wasn't washed back then. He wins the first round against Robert and then TKOs him on the ground. He then goes up against Sean Strickland and he beats him in a close split decision, which I think Dricus won. I know a lot of people think that Sean got robbed there. But he then goes against Israel Adesanya. Once again, everyone thinks Izzy's too clean for him. He's too crisp. He's going to piece up Dricus. I picked fourth round submission, or I actually more specifically, rear naked choke. And even though it was technically a face crank, I got it right. I called it to a T. But everyone was writing him off once again, man. Surely Izzy's too clean for him. And then we go into this next fight with Sean Strickland. And I don't think everyone was counting him out. And now I think actually most pundits and MMA creators and all that shit were picking Dricus going into the second fight. Understandably so. And he ended up going out there and solidifying that he was just the better fighter than Sean Strickland. And he made that very clear. He looked awesome on that night. And like I said before, you could say whatever you want about Sean Strickland, but nobody at 185 has been able to best him except for Dricus du Plessis and One Punch Man fucking Alex Pereira. So a win or 2 wins over the decisionator Sean Strickland by decision, it's like knocking out Ilia Topuria. You know what I'm saying? And I just can't get behind this narrative that Khamzat Chimeav is some like untouchable fighter when we've seen him arguably lose fights before. Like, am I crazy to think that Gilbert Burns had a case to have won that fight against Khamzat? Am I crazy to think that he clearly won round 2 and very easily could have won round 3? He was bombing Chimaev in that third round with overhand rights over and over again. He landed like 5 or some shit back to back to back, and Khamzat ends the fight with like a front kick that knocks Gilbert onto the ground and misses all of his strikes, and then he's given that round. Listen, it was a very close third round. I would argue though that Gilbert he may have actually earned that fucking victory in my personal opinion. But obviously Khamzat didn't fight the fight that he normally does, but it's also because Gilbert didn't allow him to, right? But obviously Dricus doesn't have that same type of jiu-jitsu pedigree. However, Gilbert's a former 155er, and Dricus du Plessis could probably fight at 205 and be normally sized. So like we're talking about multiple weight classes of difference as far as sizes between the two of them. So you have to take that into account. Yeah, it took down Kevin Holland. It took him about 2 minutes to get him into a bad position and made him tap as well with a Bravo choke. But then the Kamaru Usman fight comes into play, and listen, Kamaru Usman, in my opinion, is far out of his prime. You can see the way he looks on the feet. Not a 185er as well. He took that fight on short notice. Credit to him, man. Credit to Kamaru Usman for that. That's a dog thing to do, man. Go on short notice in a weight class you've never fought at. Keep that in mind. People will say, well, Kamaru Usman's a big guy and he's a strong wrestler, but he had never competed at 185 before. And it was on short fucking notice, dude. Khamzat Chimaev, he attempted to do the same thing to him that he did to previous opponents, and he almost succeeded in that first round, but Kamaru Usman survived that. Then how did Khamzat look in rounds 2 and 3? In my opinion, he lost those 2 rounds. In my opinion, he did. Kamaru Usman was landing the bigger shots, and Khamzat Chimaev, I'm telling you, when Khamzat fades, it's not a minor thing. He's a completely different fighter. He can no longer shoot from across the octagon for your hips anymore. He's suddenly on a silver platter to be hit, and his strikes just slow down to such a crazy degree that it makes no sense to pick Khamzat in this fight, because you really have to back him for that first round finish, right? I don't even think second round will work. I think it has to be the first round. Because let's say Khamzat Chimaev comes out here a little bit more measured than we're used to seeing from him, right? He takes his foot off the gas a little bit in that first round and just feels out Dricus du Plessis. That'll give Dricus every opportunity to put his foot on the gas from the first round. And then who knows, maybe Khamzat won't look the same in that second round still, even though he didn't unload the gas tank with his offense. Having to defend the onslaught of Dricus du Plessis in that first round will probably cause him to gas anyway, right? And I understand that he could be putting in the work, right? He looks great in camp. Everyone's pointing to it. Everyone always points to how good Khamzat Chimaev looks in camp, yet he still gasses out every single time, right? For some people, it's just genetics, right? Some people just have that crazy gas tank, that crazy cardio. Marav is one of them, right? Some people just aren't explosive, but they can last forever, right? You look at someone like RDR, for example. He's so big and he looks so strong, but then when you see him strike, he looks just as fast in the fifth round as he does in the first round. With someone like Khamzat Chimaev, you don't shoot yourself across the octagon like that and have such power in the hands, right, in the first round, the way that Khamzat does, and be able to maintain that. You just simply can't do it, right? You just simply cannot do it. When you're someone of Khamzat's size, of his strength and his explosiveness, you simply cannot keep that up. The only way for Khamzat to manage that, in my opinion, is to be more measured. But that's just not how Khamzat fights, dude. And I don't know if he's technical enough to fight a measured fight like that against Dricus, because Dricus will then just make it too messy for him, and I think steamroll him in the late rounds regardless, man. So that's what I'm saying. We rarely see a situation like this where the fighter with one path to victory, on paper at least, of course, like I said, guys, he can always go out there and surprise me. I give Khamzat a lot of credit. He has underrated boxing, like I said. He could crack Dricus. I know we've never seen him cracked like that in the UFC, but Khamzat, he can crack. He has a pretty sharp right hand, and for all I know, he could go out there and put a big right hand right on Dricus du Plessis' kisser and bypass all of the Looney Tunes action and just get him out of there in the first round. But I just don't see it happening, guys. I just don't see it happening. And it's just a lot easier for Dricus to develop takedown defense than it is for Khamzat Chimaev to develop a 5-round gas tank. Some people just are not 5-round fighters. And that's how it is. And this is Khamzat's first 5-round fight, and we've never seen an example of Khamzat Chimaev making it out of the first round and looking like the same fighter as he was in the first round, right? But we have seen examples of Dricus du Plessis showing fight over fight improvements because of his activity, because of his experience that he's picked up at the top level. Khamzat hasn't fought for almost a year now. Before that, he didn't fight for a year. Before that, he didn't fight for a year. You know what I mean? He's been extremely inactive. He's fought 3 times in the last 3 years. Meanwhile, Dricus du Plessis has been picking up, like I say, experience at the top level against top-level contenders and showing fight over fight improvements every time, because that's how you improve, in my opinion. And at the very top level, you can only improve with in-ring experience against high-level opponents, and Dricus has been doing that. Meanwhile, Khamzat, of course, due to long COVID or whatever the reason is, Khamzat hasn't been picking up that experience, dude. He just hasn't been. And I think that'll only hurt him going into this one. Dricus is on a warpath, and DDP's chasing potential 185-pound GOAT status with a win over Khamzat Chimaev. Because think about how highly touted Khamzat is as a contender, and for good reason. Dricus goes out there and becomes the first person to beat him. For me, just look at his resume leading up to this as well. He may actually just become the 185-pound GOAT, but let me know what you think. And that's what I'm predicting nice and early here. Of course, I will do my breakdown of the fight during fight week, and my prediction may change from now to then. But as things stand right now, I just can't see Khamzat beating Dricus du Plessis. I just can't see it. But it's such an intriguing matchup. I love this fight. I love that Khamzat's getting this opportunity, because he has every opportunity to prove me and everyone who's doubting his gas tank or his ability to get Dricus out of there in the first round wrong. And I love that. And Dricus gets the opportunity to prove everyone wrong, at least everyone who's picking against him, that he can match Khamzat Chimaev's strength and grappling, survive that first round, and then put on a champion's performance in rounds 2, 3, 4, and 5. And I believe that if he is able to get out of that first round, which I do think he will, rounds 2, 3, 4, 5, man, the world is Dricus' oyster. He can finish that fight in any round that he wants, in any way that he wants, I believe. I think that version of Chimaev that we're used to seeing past the first dude, he's going to get pieced up by Dricus. Dricus has bricks in those hands. He hits very hard, clearly. Very underrated kicking game. He's going to piece up Chimaev. especially once Chimaev is slowing down like that. It's the jab, it's the two. He barely throws anything else. Maybe a front kick to the body here and there. He's just not dynamic. He does not have a deep tool bag like that to where he can do anything to Dricus past that first, in my opinion. And this is going to be a dominant victory for Dricus. I don't know yet, like whether I'm predicting a finish in this round, or a fucking decision, whatever. I'm not too sure what to expect yet. So I'll save that for a later video. But as things stand, I just want you guys to know that Dricus du Plessis is going to goof all over this guy Khamzat Chimaev, and it'll be no different than any of his fights, right? He'll get beat until he wins. And it's just as simple as that, because that's the kind of fighter Dricus du Plessis is. This man never says die. He never gives up, and he doesn't gas, right? And even when he does gas, he's somehow able to reach down within and pull out a second wind whenever he needs it. Right? And whenever his opponents are on him and picking up any sort of momentum over him, Dricus du Plessis is so good at landing something to deter you. You know what I mean? Doing something weird to swing the fight in his favor. He's so good at that, man. And I know everyone likes to boil down his style to being goofy this, goofy that, but the man is extremely technical, extremely well-rounded, and I think just he has the skill advantage over Khamzat Chimaev. And you can pick Khamzat based on his potential to finish the fight in the first round. But in a 5-round fight, there is no bigger advantage to have over your opponent than cardio. And DDP has that in spades here, man. Post-surgery, DDP has been an animal. And I'm never picking anyone against him unless it's maybe RDR. Because only RDR can enter the Toon Force with him and potentially match him in that department. But that does conclude my thoughts on this fight. I'm looking forward to it. That's why I wanted to give you guys my sort of like pre-prediction thoughts on the fight. Even though I did kind of predict what I think is going to happen. Of course, I will post another video pertaining to this card during fight week, as I always do, and give you guys my comprehensive picks all throughout the card. And who knows, maybe my prediction will change from now and then, right, between now and then. But until then, guys, I appreciate you watching, and I'll see you on the next one.